All right, 2 p.m. Central African time. It's a Thursday, the last day of this month, and we enter this beautiful episode today with a lot of interesting developments happening around the federation known as FESBC. What we want to do today is beginning to look at a significant pledge from the Federation of Eswatini Business Community, which is aimed squarely at empowering small businesses in a promise that could be transformative for SMEs. Now, the Federation's chairperson for the Manzini region, Prince Temba Dlamini, has announced a dedicated unit within the Federation, which is solely focused on helping these businesses craft winning businesses as well as craft winning business plans. A critical move really to ensure that none of their members face hurdles in their journey toward growth and success. We're also going to turn our focus to the agricultural sector, still under FESBC now, where farmers under the Federation in the Manzini region are applauding the ongoing partnership between the Federation as well as the Center for Financial Inclusion, with specialized training on sustainable practices as well as green business strategies. Now, this collaboration is paving the way for farmers to better understand as well as to navigate the impacts of climate change, something that is regarded as maybe a key step towards ensuring resilient as well as sustainable agriculture. These are the developments topping our agenda this afternoon as we explore the Federation's ongoing support to bolster Eswatini's business landscape. Let's start the show by looking at the business stories today that are making the lead. On our first story, on our business news, the governor of the Central Bank of Eswatini, Dr. Philip Mnisi, has announced that next week the bank will be hosting the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA. It is going to be the Committee of Central Bank Governors meeting from the 2nd to the 8th, which is aimed to, amongst other things, discuss the impact of cybersecurity.
The Central Bank of Eswatini will be hosting the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa Committee of Central Bank Governors meetings from the 2nd to the 8th of November 2024. And these will be taking place at the Central Bank complex site, the new site at Eswatini. And just by virtue of being the chair of the COMESA Central Committee of Central Bank Governors. So Eswatini at the moment, we are the chair of COMESA Central Bank Governors. COMESA consists of 21 member states, and its mandate is to attain regional integration through trade and investment. So from the 2nd to the 3rd of November, there will be a meeting for the experts of the Bureau. The Bureau consists of 5 member central banks, which are voted into office on an annual basis, and the chairmanship is on a rotational amongst the member central banks. The function of the Bureau is to guide the COMESA issues and reports to the COMESA Committee of Central Bank Governors. The experts of the Bureau meeting will be followed by the experts meeting for all COMESA central banks from the 4th to the 5th of November. This meeting discusses issues that were deliberated by the preceding experts of the Bureau meeting and makes or endorses recommendations to the Bureau of the COMESA governors. Then after that, the Bureau will then go and report to the entire governors meeting that takes on the last day, which will be on the 8th of November. A symposium will be held on the 7th of November. This is just for capacity building. And there are 2 themes that we shall be delving on this time. On the 7th, and the media is invited, digital banking and the impact of cybersecurity and other emerging risks to central banks in the COMESA region. The other one is the era of using big data and machine learning in central banks and financial institutions, implications of monetary policy.
The Central Bank of Eswatini also says that it has promised fairness and participation of local companies as well as stakeholders during the construction of the new central bank complex, which is going to be constructed at Eswatini. This was shared by the Governor, Dr. Philip Nisi, when giving an update on the construction of the bank's headquarters.
The first phase is the construction of a high-rise office park, which is 18-story building, together with a data center, innovation hub, a museum, and a parking facility. So that is phase one of the project. Phase two is a cash center, a center of excellence which integrates the existing infrastructure that is already there, a wellness center, clinic, and conference facility. Phase three, it's sports center, flats for staff accommodation, car park with a solar panel canopies. So we are moving into a compliant environmentally and climate adapting infrastructure. And then the last phase will be a multi-purpose hall. This project is currently online for phase one and is earmarked for completion in June 2028. The bank has engaged FESBC, a consulting engineers, which is a Taiwanese government-owned company with extensive experience in high-rising buildings as project manager through single sourcing, and the board has approved this whole process. The project is nearing completion of its basic design, with geotechnical surveys and traffic assessments underway. The bank intends to tender for phase one early in 2025, aiming to sign a design-build agreement by the end of May 2025. Construction is anticipated to commence in June 2025. The scope of FESBC has been expanded to include the development of preliminary designs. To ensure compliance with local standards, regulations, FESBC has partnered with local subcontractors. This is very, very important. We are ensuring as a bank that local participation is evident in this project. Specialist consultants have been engaged for various services, which include environmental consultancy, geotechnical surveys, and the traffic assessment. The bank's procurement policy will be followed to ensure transparency.
The Tams Green Zone Lifestyle Center, which is scheduled to commence next year at Eswatini, promises better job opportunities as well as energy-saving projects, amongst other initiatives. Tams Group Communications Officer Dr. Lwazi Dlamini shares more about the project.
It's a project that is going to start in the first quarter of 2025. So we have I've got an estimated budget of 230 to 270 million, which basically will encompass 3 stages of the construction of the lifestyle center. So this is how it's going to work. We have invited major stakeholders that are going to contribute in the construction phase. So we're going to be using almost 100% green material to actually build that lifestyle center. We've partnered with the Ramashka architects. They're the ones who came up with the whole drawings and the whole concept behind the green, the green aspect of the green zone. So if I may explain how it's actually going to go, it will consist of about 90% of the roof covered in solar panels, and we plan to make sure that the energy there is reusable. So we also have water collection points where we're going to recycle the water that we collect from rain, and we've got a biodegradation plant that is going to be associated with it. So whatever waste that we're going to be getting from the lifestyle center will be renewed into energy. So we're going to be creating energy like ethanols and that we can get from reused waste. So basically it was a dream from the president of Tams Group, Mr. DuPont, when he created Tams Waterworld Hotel. Tams Waterworld Hotel had a green aspect from the onset. So right now it's over 15 years and he's still continuing from that dream. So the terms Green Zone Lifestyle Center is a continuation of the green dream that he had to put back into the environment and to maintain the biodiversity.
All right, we go for a break now. We come back, we focus on what the Federation, or rather what FESBC is doing really to make sure that our local indigenous businesses are bolstered.
Sabatani ukuthi njengalokhu sifile sive sitikhulume.
All right, our Enterprise Watch now. The Federation of Eswatini Business Community promises that members of the Federation will not struggle with writing business plans, as they have a unit that is strictly dedicated to helping the small-scale businesses write winning business plans. This was said by the chairperson of the Federation in the Manzini region, Prince Themba Dlamini. He said this during a training of SMEs on Wednesday.
Wabosomabhizinisi bakaManzini engabeni elive kuthi bafinyela kanjani ekutholeni imali ukuthi baqale emabhizinisi banishisekelo ke bantu baManzini temabhizinisi kakhulu futhi nyalo njengoba imisebenzi sowade nje endla amandla useyishabalele bantwana bakhicitwa abo universities bakhicitwa kuma colleges kude imisebenzi kodwa ke uma labo bantwana labo labangakhona ukuthi bangene ka FESBC akwadi ukuthi ayosebenza ibhizinisi avula ibhizinisi ngoba sengiyona mpilo lesifuna isale siphila sale kuba iculture vele ukuthi singasolo sile sifuna imisebenzi sale sithi sebenza thina loko kuyoliseta live lokuhle futhi ngako baholi bemhlaba baholi belive emakhosi ayakutusa kakhulu ene bakusekela ukuthi bantu baqala emabhizinisi inkosi ikhulumile emahlandla lamaningi ukuthi sale sitifaka wonke emabhizinisini ngako ke vele bosomabhizinisi obabona bagwelela bete khona ukuthi ngabe bafinyelela kanjani ekutholeni imali lapha ke iworkshop lena siyafundziswa ukuthi imali sifinyelela kanjani ukuthi imali soyitholile ubhadala kanjani ngoba phela kusho ukuthi nje igrant imali ukuthi nayo lapho nje uyibisele bosomabhizinisi kube kuye ukuthi imali akwadi kube iculture ukuthi imali uyayibhadala njengokuba njena kuvele nalithuba nje belikhona la bomomo lapha uthi impilo ezophelelwe ngegesi so uyathatha leyo 500 bakuboleka bathi abeyobhadala baye ba 30 days ke so uyabhadala ke noma before 30 days lokho kwenta igama lakho libe lihle lapha ke bosomabhizinisi batofundiswa ngakho ukuthi akube iculture yabo ukuthi uma uboleke imali uphinde uyibisele lokho nebhizinisi yakho iyokhula noma sofuna ikhulisa ibhizinisi so uyahamba futhi uyoboleka batakunika basemabhange noma kuphi imali ukuthi ukwade uqhubeka FESBC nje ubona njalo ingabene live bekade baselibonjeni kulela langa lela bebathe bakahoho batawuphelela ke eshiselweni ke kuleviki elitako ngalesine nakhona solo bawucijwa solo bathola wona lokho ngoba kubanjwe live lonke bosomabhizinisi belive lonke la kaNgwane likufute ukuthi bacijeke kuleti tekuthola imali phinde futhi kusungule amabhizinisi uba limember ka FESBC ukhipha 500 wemalangeni bese ke kusoba khona ama subscriptions njengoba phela wathi ukuthi njalo nje sila konke kufute ukuthi kuphume imali uyasubscribe ke lo subscriber njalo ngenyanga uyamkhipha 265 emalangeni noma lilungu uma sojoyinile ujoyina 500 kuningi kakhulu lokulethela kona ngoba thina nje la sinalabaqeqeshiwe lapha labasele ama business plan kunababe nje wakafaka ukuthi lapha lijaji seselincane futhi nje linemandla kude njena lapho like la bounce khona kuthi uma end business plan bese iyabuye imali yakhe asayitholi loyo soma business vele ushaya khona lo babelo noma ndathi inkukhu ndathi inkomo wenda noma yini uyakwendela fakuthe lokusho nje ukuthi vele le mali ihamba umgamo lomuthe.
All right, still on FESBC, farmers under the Federation of Eswatini Business Community in the Manzini region have commended the partnership between the Federation and the Center for Financial Inclusion for the trainings that they are currently conducting on greening businesses. Speaking at Alcon House in Manzini during one of the trainings, one of the farmers say fully understanding the impact of climate change is going to ensure that they do sustainable businesses.
Lo mhlangano wa FESBC nguwo lotawulekelela ukuthi mina njengemfuyi wenyosi ngikhona esandla sami kufinyelela imalini ngite ukwenda letinto letitawenda le environment yekufuywa kwalenyosi ube conducive ngithole emabhokisi ngithole isitembatho umhlaba wonke ugcwalele amabulo ngoba ngawo lamabulo lataba 70 tam angisebentele ngishaya nje uyezwana kuwo awenda umsebenzi uphumelele sithole luju sithole naleminye imikhiqido ngoba inyosini akusiloluju kuphela lisifunako ngisho loludvosi lwenyosi luyalekelela ngoba uyatsinga nje nawe tsatswethu ikusudele once in a while ilekelele mathambo akho ngoba kunetifo letingenako letelashwa ngilobuthi baloludvosi lwenyosi.
Umhlangano walamuhla ubaluleke kakhulu kimi ngingimake lo limatibhitho ngalokwekuthi kunalabanye labalimako lesitawukhulumisana nabo sicocisane kepha nje lo mfundasikole ikakhulu tosisita lokwekuthi singenda kanjani ukuthi lamabhizinisi ethu ayinakekele imvelo siphindze futhi sikhone lokuthi silungele kuthola imali emabhangi.
Kulo msebenzi lesiwendako vele kude la ungafika khona makude imali and lokunye lengikutsandzile lokusicwayisa ngoba thina sathi ukuthi wathola imali yakho kanti imali ayisiyo yakho imali yebusiness bathi wena thola lokuwakho kule business uqhubeke ngakho uzokhona kusima kahle ngiloko lengikuthandzile and kanti lokunye nje ngetolo kwaloko lokubuthanisa nje abalimi batawufundziswa ngento lephathelene nemali nangebe umqoka bekugcina imvelo kuyasita kakhulu ngoba kusho ukuthi lo mhlaba sidabe sinawo nakusasa. Yes, akusilo ukuthi asisebende kuthi la betako bakhanza sekude lutho. Lokunye lengikubukile lengikuthathako siyalima ngala lekulesikulima kokwehlukene lokushothi kuyafuna sithi sisasebenda siyiqaphele imvelo siyalima thine like mina nje ngihlanyela ibutternut nyalo ibutternut ishaya timbali mina ngisebenzisa imithi lokushothi sisafuna sifunze kabanti ngale mithi ukuthi lo muthi lemina lengivikela letilwane kadala letilimata tibhidvo tami atingamlimati phela nangilo safuye tinyosi lapha.
All right, we connect with Sanel Sbia after the break for our market analysis. Global indices taking a significant shift today. We want to understand all those movements today with Sanel Sbia shortly after the break.
Ujala masada mahle kunathi lesa. Sabatandi ukuthi njengalokho sifile sive sithi khulume.
All right, for our market analysis today, perhaps the biggest highlight is that global indices are taking a dip and commodities are diverging, and the Lilangeni is shifting against key currencies. Sanel SB has joined us now via a Zoom video link to help us understand really these movements. Starting with the U.S. market, Sanel, a very good afternoon to you. The Dow, Nasdaq, and S&P 500 all in the red, losing respectively by the numbers, the figures that we will see on the screen right now. One has to ask, are we witnessing something that is we can attribute to a reaction to immediate economic data, or is this a signal that investor sentiment is cooling on growth prospects heading into the fourth quarter?
Good afternoon, Mr. Ngumado, and good afternoon to the viewer. So what we are seeing right now, basically, Mr. Ngumado, is actually a story of the earnings season that we are in. Investors are looking into those earnings reports from quite a number of companies, and also not just looking at how much buybacks are going to be happening in terms of the dividends and all of those things. So what we are seeing happening today, towards the close of business yesterday in the US, we saw the likes of Microsoft and Meta coming out to say, they are really just a bit worried in terms of the costs that are associated with AI or artificial investment in artificial intelligence related type of investments, because the cost is actually getting a bit higher, yet we are not seeing those profits coming out. So that's what we are seeing happening within mega cap, and we are waiting for that magnificent seven to come up with their earnings reports, later on in the week and earlier next week. So the volatility in the markets is likely due to those factors, Mr. Ngumalo, the fact that if earlier on in the year, we saw that it was the tech stocks that were actually pushing and moving markets. And then now we are in a period where investors, ever since the first half, ever since June, have been waiting to see whether the mega caps or the AI type of stocks are actually going to pay out the way that investors hope they would, because as you can see, these stocks are what you would call a bit overvalued because of market optimism around artificial intelligence. So if we're seeing costs going up a bit, that means markets need to stay in the period of very little profit until and unless we start recouping costs. And then there's also the issue of the economic data, Mr. Nimero, that's about to come out. We know that we are waiting to see the non-farm payroll data coming out tomorrow, waiting to see consumer expenditure data coming out today, and that's what the Feds use as a good measure of inflation. It's going to tell us how likely we are going to see interest rate cuts in the next coming days, Mr. Ngumal. And then also the bit of that of that election uncertainty also coming into play.
All right. I do want to understand the European markets as well. Just across the pond, Europe isn't faring much better. We are seeing the CAC 40. It is leading declines at negative 0.88%. Could the European outlook be shadowed by sector-specific pressures, or is this market mirroring global risk aversion more than we anticipated?
So what we're seeing in Europe, if you go, it's mostly the earnings story and a bit of economic data type of story. When you look, for example, into the UK in London, what you're seeing happening there is, we saw the Chancellor of the Exchequer presenting her very first budget yesterday. And that budget, it speaks of huge or threefold spending. Last we've seen such levels of increases in expenditure some 3 decades ago. So now markets are trying to see how that is actually going to impact the inflation outlook in the UK, and how that is actually going to, cause the Bank of England to now take a step back in terms of its inflation and the cutting of interest rates. Yeah, so that's what's happening in London. And, this over-ambitious type of budget stance then also calls to mind the fact that, or the understanding of whether it's going to be attainable or not. And most analysts are coming out to say, she really has set herself up for failure because there really is no wiggle room around her budget. So that's what's happening in the UK. And then also you couple that with earnings season and the Magnificent Seven stories also trickling into the European markets. And then if you come into Germany, you will see that month-on-month manufacturers' orders have actually been declining as as one would see that through the PMI that came out. It also showed that even in September, German manufacturers are not really doing very well. So that's why we're seeing the DAX taking that bit of a hit, in as much as investor sentiment remains very high, but investors are in it for the money. And if they're starting to see signs of an economy that's going to somehow slow down, then they're going to take their money. And then when you look into France, again, France is still battling with those issues of debt and still trying to wiggle their way around how they can deal with their with their fiscal deficit. And over and above, it's also an issue of the earnings season, and that Microsoft story, that Meta story, you will see just reverberates around throughout the economy, throughout the globe, because major cap stocks were the ones to look out for, and they were the ones actually driving market trends upwards. So if there is that bit of negative news coming out of Microsoft and Meta, then you do expect that to ripple through the entire market.
Interesting indeed. Asian markets, curiously, Asian markets diverge. Shanghai's positive 0.04% moves against the regional grain. Is this optimism about China's economic resilience, or could it be a one-off market response that is coupling Shanghai from broader Asia?
So what we are seeing in Shanghai there is, you'll recall that the Bank of China, the Central Bank of China, has actually pumped in another round of that stimulus package, those buybacks, also just aimed at propping up the Chinese economy. So we are seeing the impacts of that. While overall Asia, you can see the impacts of those Meta stories and that interest rate cut type of scope also coming into play. Because right now what markets are doing, Mr. Numalo, is just trying to reanalyze and see where the monetary policy path is going to lie, given the new data and given the earnings expectations and the macroeconomic data. So we are seeing that coming into play, and then also a bit of that elections uncertainty. And then in South Africa, what we are seeing there is looking into Minister Kondongwana's statement yesterday, that medium-term budget statement. It shows that in as much as some areas may be doing okay, but there really is no change in terms of the real economy. So what the change that we expect to see coming with the GNU is still not showing. And what the minister presented yesterday was a statement that one could say that it's trying to balance, between the wishes of quite a number of the parties in the GNU, in the sense that there were no bailouts for state-owned enterprises, which, for example, we expected to see, and that's what the markets are now mulling into and looking into that. And you can see that also trickles into the currency markets. You will see that the Lilangeni lost a bit of ground against all of these major currencies, because that medium-term budget statement did not inspire much confidence and has not necessarily presented anything tangible in terms of what the current GNU is going to do, except for just trying to carry through this program that this previous government had and into 2024, because the thing that we got there was we're going to start seeing changes and new plans coming up into the 2024 budget. And then when you look into commodities, what we're seeing in commodities happening there is, we can see gold still remaining high on that 2,700 mark, but losing a bit of ground purely because we do have a bit of ground around the interest rates. But what we are seeing is the fact that there's still a lot of volatility that's going to be there in the market. There is that earnings uncertainty, there is that political uncertainty, and then there's the geopolitical tensions, the Middle East, all of those issues. That's what's propping gold up this day as a hedging asset. And then when you look into the price of Brent crude oil, you will see that Brent crude oil has just tipped up a bit given that uncertainty and that volatility in the Middle East. But still, one would say that these are the levels that we generally the global economy could be comfortable with. And then that's why I keep saying this is more a demand story than it is a conflict type of story. Thank you, Mr. Nxumalo.
Thank you so much, Sanele, for your time this afternoon. Very, very important clarifications that you have provided for us. Thank you so much indeed. I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Similarly to our viewers here for this episode of FESBC Market View, we hope you are going to enjoy the rest of your afternoon. This has been FESBC Market View, the last day of October. As we enter November, I hope we enter it with a lot of blessings. Have a good afternoon.